Hey, hold on. Excuse me, I couldn't get the burp that I was trying to get out. It hurt. It actually really hurt. Hey, I just got done eating, being twice as fat, which means that I'm gonna have to work out pretty hard whenever it's digested or so. But I decided to make this video. It's not necessarily like related towards Destiny or anything. It's more so just thoughts, stuff that I want to get out and want to complain about. And I'm aware that in this case, the issue may not entirely be me, but at the same time, excuse me, oh my goodness, excuse me. At the same time, I mean, I feel like to some extent, I can't entirely be in the wrong here. All right. So this month, well, it is now May 1st, so it's no longer this month, but April, maybe March, but more so April, bleeding into early May has been like the worst experience of this year for me thus far. And I'm saying that now, but watch, I'm gonna get like some kind of disease or uncurable something, or a kid, which, I mean, a kid is significantly less worse than a disease or uncurable something, but at the same time, it's financial responsibility and overall just extra responsibility. But my whole point is like, watch something else worse is just gonna end up happening or something, right? So probably a week, 2 weeks ago, if you were watching my channel and like my videos and whatnot, you might have heard that, or you paid attention to me saying that I was just like mad tired, right? Got out of a bad relationship. I was mad tired. Nothing was going my way. Um, I had like four or five, I kid you not, like four or five different projects to turn in, and those weren't even the final exams that I would need to finish in order to graduate, right? So I had all this stuff just stacked up against me, and my back's against the wall. And all while this is happening, I'm dealing with work, I'm dealing with like a lack of sleep, or sleeping too much and still feeling like I'm getting no rest at all. Um, Stuff at home, right? Like I'm just eating it, man. I'm just eating it, and it all finally just, excuse me, crashes, right? It comes crashing down, and I'm fine, right? Like I finally get peace where things aren't so bad and things are slowly starting to feel normal or more so um, bearable, right? And just more stuff keeps coming up, but it gets handled slowly, like slowly over time, right? All right, cool. I'm finally to this point where everything's chill, everything's fine. Um, I'm pretty much at the finish line, right? I've got a project due like Friday. I had two exams today, one online, one in person, and um, I graduate Saturday. Okay, cool. All this work, all this effort, you know, it's finally coming to a close. I plan on going back for a completely different major. By the way, I'll talk about that now. The other major does not rely on other people as much as the one that I'm in right now does. The one that I'm in right now is god awful, right? It is like what I'm going in it for was supposed to be for editing videos, right? It was supposed to be working on sets. It was supposed to be setting things up. It was supposed to be working with camera work, lighting, um, microphone, audio work, all that stuff, like production, creating things, working behind the camera. That's what like I decided to basically spend this entire major going to school for. Tell me why everything that I've just listed off to you, I only had maybe four classes for, maybe, right? Sure, I had plenty of classes that did extra stuff sort of in the field, in the realm, but it wasn't exactly like what I wanted to do. And of course, school is like a place where they're going to put things in your face that you don't want to deal with, right? But oh my God, I had a class like one of the classes I'm just finishing up now was solely devoted to recording audio. And it turns out that we weren't even really supposed to be recording audio. We were supposed to be writing. But the teacher so poorly like translated that, nobody knew, right? So this class was for writing scripts for TV and radio. But for me, ended up being a class where you record audio for TV and radio as well as writing scripts. Only found out that it wasn't for recording audio towards the end of the semester when people were going out of their way to ask because they weren't sure originally. And I never asked like in the beginning because we all just kind of assumed that you had to record something. So I assumed that everybody else was actually recording. Turns out it was just me, or mainly me, and maybe a small selection of others, right? So that's one thing, right? Another class was pretty much the same exact thing of that, except we had to go around getting research and interviewing people. Another class was you got to make content with cameras, right? That was like 2 to 3 classes, but it was rarely ever content on your own, right? You had to go out and interview people. You had to go out and basically convince people to be in your videos. And at one point, my professor got mad that we were using people that we knew or would use in more than one video and wanted us to get out of our quote unquote comfort zone and harass strangers. Like, that's essentially the word he used because it was, oh, well, don't take no for an answer, keep pushing until like they basically threaten you. And it's like, why would we do that? I'm not like embarrassing myself for a grade. You're not paying me. This is a grade. So, a lot of us had some choice words about that. But like, my gosh, like I'm not even gonna just. Well, you know what? It's the end of the year, so I might as well, right? It was. It's just been a lot of that, man. I had maybe 1 class to 2 classes where I actually worked on a large enough project where I really got to edit and work behind a set and work on cameras. But everything else has just been working with other people, like either asking for their help or helping other people who are asking for my help, right? And I hate how people dependent this major is essentially, right? Even like for projects that you don't need to talk to other people for, you can just get research online and quote them. We were instead like required to speak to other people for, all right? And if we didn't do something by like their specific parameters, well, then you failed. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And there were several of my classmates who failed. And several of them that were in the class that we were in together for like the second or third time, which was bizarre to me, man. Because it's like, I can understand you failing, but like, like my professor rarely ever gave me a good job, right? He knew that like, not all my projects, I'll be honest, definitely not all of them, but like a quarter of them actually deserve some kind of praise, right? And there was one that he gave me praise for, and it wasn't even crazy praise. It was just kind of like a good job, right? Pretty much all the females in my class, even when they didn't do good, got praise. And then there was a few males who actually did an amazing job that kind of got an acknowledgement, but no praise, right? I basically rarely ever got praise, like once, right? And then never got an acknowledgement. So it was mainly like, oh, he'd see mine, he wouldn't even leave a comment. He'd just skip over it and let somebody else go. And then he'd praise them right after me. And it's like, yo, what about mine? You know? He'd have us like required to speak in class, and I'd speak and talk to him, and he would ignore me. He didn't want to hear what I had to say. Or he'd hear me for X amount of whatever time, and then be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that
like we were in the middle of a conversation. It's like, what are you talking about? Like the whole class is quiet. You and I are talking to each other. You jumped off into another student. Like, what do you mean you didn't know we were talking? And it's like, how did I get put with these professors, man? How? And this major isn't even. And the professor like admitted to us at one point. He was just like, "Yo, you know, we're in a part of like the U.S. that's kind of cheaper, low quality, so they don't make movies here. So this class isn't going to be even if it is like more so heavily pointed toward like movie work. This university doesn't give you the exact like tools to do it, and where you're living at right now, let's be reasonable. You're not going to get a job in the movie field, so we're just really going to work on news, and that's how you'll do it. It'll all be centered around news, so get ready to prepare for working with news, which is not what I expected, and it's not what anybody signed up for. We were all thrown for a loop. But through like 2 semesters of that professor, I managed to squeak it out and pass. More than a handful failed. Um, there were some people who were cheated, right? Like the professor basically told them he'd pass them, and then he'd fail them. There are some people who made it out by the grace of God. The professor was supposed to fail them, but passed them. All kinds of stuff, man. They had stories to share and whatnot, but my God. Um, but that's not the main one that I want to talk about, right? The one I want to talk about is so the one with the writing and whatnot, right? I had a project. It's exam week this week. All my exams for all my other classes were done like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. For some weird reason, I've got two due. No, I have three due this week. I'm supposed to be a graduating senior, which means that all of our stuff comes earlier, which means that we get out earlier. But there are professors who don't believe that and want to hold you hostage afterward. So, one of my classes was the writing and whatever for radio and TV. There was a project that we had to do that doubled as our final exam. So, one was research where we had to interview people, and then another was what we've basically been doing the entire semester. So I did both of those and turned them in today, even though they're due Friday. Okay, well now I'm officially done with that class. The other class was a test, an actual exam. A lot of the work, like both of these were online classes. A lot of the work was difficult, right? A lot of people didn't know what was going on, didn't know how to make heads or tails of it. Um, I was doing everything the best of my ability based off of what I could get from the book. And that wasn't me reading the whole book from beginning to end because, oh my gosh, there's so much useless information in that book. It's hard to figure out what's important and what's not, right? And just reading it sitting down, your brain cuts off after about 3 pages because a page alone, I kid you not, a page alone was like 5 to 8 paragraphs, and a chapter was like 15 to 20 pages, and we had like 14 chapters. I was like, oh no, no, that's not gonna work. The professor eventually gave study guides and manuals and stuff for us to look over, which covered some aspects of what we were doing, but not enough for us to confidently go over everything, right? So I was able to get some things down for the first few weeks, but things started really ramping up. And at one point, it was just a guessing game that my professor basically told me I was guessing correct at. After a while, things got turbo crazy, and we were getting assignments that didn't make sense at all, right? And nobody understood them. Somebody had been repeating it in the group chat. They've been using like Chat GPT. I was like, man, let me see what this is about. I don't like really ever use Chat GPT. Let me see if it can help me with my homework. So I go and I use it, and I kid you not, it gave me all the answers except for like the really hard written stuff. It gave me answers for those, but they turned out not to be right. I used them anyway. Passed the assignments to a degree, and then had a test today and used it on the test. And I hope I passed. I don't know at this point, but I feel like even if I did fail the test, I'd still pass the class. So I'm not bothered by it, right? But then we have this last one, which is an in-person one of the only in-person classes I've had all semester, right? And it's a class that's an elective, and it's not an elective that I handpicked. It's more so, if you listen to the other videos, one that my professor picked for me due to the availability and how like bad the systems were at the university to where we couldn't pick our classes the day that we were assigned to. Great, right? Okay, so I'm in this class, and I've taken this class 3 times. This would be the 3rd time. I took it twice at my community college. One time didn't count as a full time because I ended up having to take a break from school. The 2nd time did count as a full time, but I ended up failing. And I failed because we don't really have a lot of quizzes, tests, work in the class, right? And when we do, it's usually like I think it's like 3 tests per like the entire semester for that class. Like every time I take that class, no matter where I take it, in the university, in the college, or the community college or whatever, it's only like 3 tests per semester, no real homework, right? Okay, cool. I failed that class on my last final because we had to watch a movie in class. It was a great movie. I saw it like 4, 5, 6 years ago when I was at community college. I could probably tell you the highlights of the movie, couldn't tell you what the name of the movie was or the main characters' names. But if you really watched movies or older movies back then and you heard me describing it, you'd probably know exactly what movie I'm talking about, right? The movie was sad. It's overall supposed to be like a sad-ish kind of movie. There are sad things that happen in it. The end kind of turns around to spread this message about cancer, which was like a positive message saying that like doctors should be more aware of like cancer patients and should really look towards cancer and all this stuff, right? And then the throughout the movie, there were a lot of like questionable scenes, like everybody was kind of contemplating if like the main character was cheating on his wife or leaving his family behind because he was like really stuck with this cancer patient who was supposed to die, and he was trying to do everything he could to make sure that she stayed alive as well as had a happy life before she died, and she ends up dying or whatever. But throughout the movie, it's pretty funny. Not the fact that she has cancer and she's suffering, but more so they like try to keep things lighthearted by sprinkling in jokes and comedy and whatnot throughout the movie, and it was pretty funny. And they do it enough so to where like, yes, the movie's sad, but it's not a flat out like sad vibe, right? My biggest takeaways while watching it were at the time were, oh hey, you know, this guy made this joke, this guy made that joke, the cancer patient made this joke, the main character made this joke. Like I was able to look back on the jokes and really laugh at them because they were funny. Test comes around, we take it. I don't remember how I did on majority of the test. I just remember one of the bigger questions was a discussion question at the end, and it was not an optional question, but a question that was opinionated, asking you, you know, how you felt about the movie, what kind of movie was it in your opinion. I put like comedy because there were so many funny moments in the movie. You kind of forget that it's a sad movie spreading awareness to cancer. I remember my teacher like dragged me through the mud on that, right? She like in all caps and red pen, comedy, question mark, question mark, question mark, exclamation mark. And it's like, what do you mean? It's opinionated. You asked. And then it was like a part 2 type of question where you're supposed to give your reasoning. I gave my reasoning and she just exited out of it like it wasn't valid. So she's like not hearing anything I'm saying, making me sound incredibly wrong and not following through with her own like teaching that it was all opinionated. So I was just like, whatever, right? That was like one of the main tests from what I can remember at least that would determine whether or not you pass or failed. And she just ran me through the mud with it. So I failed. And even though I failed, I still passed the major because it was an elective. It doesn't matter.
which if it doesn't matter and you can fail it and still pass, you shouldn't have to take it. But whatever, right? College is a scam. Whatever. So it happens, and um, I move on to a university. I get my certificate, degree, whatever you want to call it, and I move on to a university to change majors because they didn't have the major I wanted, and then change majors again because I was struggling through the first major, even though it turns out they passed me, even though my grade was extremely low. Whatever, right? Just constantly stupid. It's like, if it doesn't matter, why am I taking these classes? If you're gonna pass me anyway, why am I required to take these courses? If you're gonna pass me anyway, right? But I digress. So none of like what I've done at community college, not really any of it, passed on to the university that I'm at, which is great. All right, that was like 2+ years of work out the window. I had to retake damn near everything since I've been at the university. Okay, well, I'm taking that class now. My teacher picked it because the university's got a terrible system for availability and filing through for students, and teachers just have to make do with what they can to make sure that you get in their class, which is terrible. But that's to be expected where I'm at right now. So okay. So I'm in this class, and a fun little fact. Same subject, right? 3 different times. Not one professor has taught it like the other at all, no matter where I've been. They all have their own personal way of teaching it, and rarely does it ever share the same definitions, words, theories, whatever, right? It's always something different with each of them. I don't know if it's different because they give it all a different name. I don't know if it's different because it's flat out not the same thing, but it's different with each of them. All right. So first class when I had it, everything was pretty funny. Everything was pretty fun. Everybody, for the most part, was having a good time. Second class I had it, everybody was depressed, toned down, didn't want to deal with anything, and they were done. This time I've got it. Everybody's pretty chill, happy, talkative, whatever. In this class, though, tests aren't at all what you think they'd be. Teacher doesn't give any study guides. You get in the class, the teacher talks, and you just make notes of what you think is important because the teacher doesn't, give you the highlights of what you need. They just give you everything at once. Okay, whatever. Cool. Say you make your notes, right? Okay. The teacher tells you test is whatever week. You've been studying this whole time for the test. You get to the test, and the test is nothing at all what you think it is. Certain things are on the test that you check your notes, you don't even have, or if you do have, it's not into the detail of what the teacher talked about, and you pretty much wrote down what your teacher said verbatim. So that's fun, right? Certain things on the test are completely crazy. Like half of it is multiple choice, the other half is fill in a blank, which is fine. You're expecting that from tests. I don't care. But the fill in the blank are certain words of definitions or like the standard understanding of what it is for fill in the blank. Okay, cool. Then the last part, which is an essay. So you're expected to write an essay. I'm great at writing essays, right? I can write essays with my eyes closed. I can write essays for hours and hours on end. I can write like Alexander Hamilton. I like most of my highest scores in anything is English, right? Papers are nothing to me. So I don't have an issue with it. The issue is we're writing over stuff that nobody knows about. We talked about it in class, but not enough to where we could retain that information to write on it and express like excess detail that you want us to, while also retaining the information for filling in the blanks and multiple choice. And at one point, the professor got upset because the test that we were like
the essay parts that we were writing weren't in the structure that he wanted, but he never gave us a prerequisite for the structures. So like this, most of the test grades, you'd have maybe like, say there's like 34 students in our class, right? About 7 of them passed, or passed with an A to B. Maybe 10 of them got a maybe low B to just a C in general. Everybody else D and F, and that was like 2 tests in a row. Outside of that, we wrote papers sometimes for homework. Other than that, we never really had homework. It was just walking in, listening to the teacher talk, which we didn't really have a book, so he wasn't reading off a book. He was just talking out loud, and we just had to go based off of his life experiences, because that's what he said. He's like, oh, I'm giving you everything based off my life experiences. And don't get me wrong, unless you're just really annoyed or you got a bad headache or something, it'll draw you in because he's being interactive with the class and he's funny and he's covering controversial topics and he's cussing and he's saying things that a lot of the other teachers aren't doing. But at the same time, it's like you want us to be typing all this stuff out or writing all this stuff out while you're giving us stories about your life. And at one point, if like I used to come in after work or before work, or I come in after coming in from another class and I would have came from that other class right after coming to work, like I'm dead, right? I don't have the energy to be here listening to you talk about how whoever left you or how you're the mediator for a couple in your class or whatever the case may be, right? Just useless stuff, right? But hey, you're trying to keep everybody together. I get it. If it's keeping everybody awake and it's working, then it's working. On good days it works. On bad days it doesn't. It's fine. It's whatever, right? A lot of people were complaining about having really low grades or failing or whatever the case may be. I had like a C, like a 70 something, almost a B. Don't know how. Check my grades. Both of my exams are F's, right? Straight F's, nowhere near a D. All my other work, which are just some papers we get sometimes and maybe 1 or 2 actual assignments, are A's to high B's because they're not hard, they're not something you overthink. I can do them in a pretty reasonable time. So for me to have a C as a total, like an average, 2 F's on the test, and like maybe 4 or 5 other assignments, and they're just A's to B's, that would give you the idea that your test scores don't count much. Not only that, but he gave us the option for extra credit, buying tickets to a play, because he's also like one of the heads of like the theater group or whatever. We asked if we buy multiple tickets, do we get multiple points? He said he wouldn't tell us the exact answer. We just have to see. I bought a handful of them just in case. I don't know if he ever actually added those extra points to my tests or not. For all I know, he could have put them in the average. People were asking him, hey, did you put this grade in or this grade in today? He basically told them, shut up, leave him alone. He's not going to answer anything. He'll handle whatever he handles, and that's just how it's going to be. Which is super rude, doesn't help anybody. And sure, like they should have asked way back when, but at the same time, he doesn't put grades in until the last minute. And I know because he just like graded and or commented on one of my assignments that I turned in a month ago. He graded / commented it today, like this morning, and didn't give me 100 because his comment was, your paper's supposed to be double spaced, and this looks like it's double and a half spaced. Okay, well, it looking like that and it being that are 2 completely separate things. Genius. That's A. B, I don't know if it's double and a half spaced. I'm not going to download it to test it. But guess what? You've got a computer. You've got Word. Can't you download my document, open it up, and see it for yourself instead of giving me a lower grade based off of speculation? Like, what's your deal, dude? So that's fun, right? The teachers at my university, you should totally attend. You'll enjoy it. And so what really tipped me off today, like just pissed me off, man, we have an exam, a final exam. We were told about it, let her know ahead of time. we got an exam. It's going to be on this day. He didn't tell us, right? He told us to follow the school exam schedule, which is sloppy. It is so poorly made, and originally it was hard to read and a little hard to understand. But when you try to just not overthink it and look at it, you're like, oh my god, this is the schedule. Whoever like set it up like this needs to be fired. You shouldn't be working in the industry at all. There's something wrong with you. But other students were the ones who let us know when the exam schedule was and how to handle it. All right, cool. So we all meet up for the exam schedule. All right, cool. He doesn't tell us when the exam schedule is. He doesn't tell us when to show up in his class. None of that. He just told us to read and hope that we read it correctly. Great teacher, by the way. So we get into class. All right. Somebody wrote on the board, playing a joke of he's going to let us cheat for X amount of whatever on a test and hopefully we'll pass. He's done it before to an extent, but we've only had 2 tests prior to this, like before all this. And one of them I missed because I had COVID, which he almost didn't let me retake. It was going to fail me for, which W teacher, right? But whatever. So we get to this last test. It's the exam today. And he's finally coming into the class. And we're all just bracing ourselves for the absolute nightmare we're going to have to endure. People are already talking about cheating and helping each other cheat and trying to figure out how to cheat. They cheated on the last test. I didn't want to get an F. Plenty of other people did, probably passed. It's great that people can cheat right in front of you. You won't say anything, but I guarantee you if I try, it's over for me. So we get to the last test today, and surprise, it's not a test. He calls you up to the class in front of everybody. You put your hand in a bag and you pull out a strip of paper. That strip of paper has questions on it. One question, your question could be a sentence, it could be half of a paragraph, but you picked out a question. You're supposed to answer the question. If you can't answer it, you fail. If you can answer it, you pass. If you can answer it, but you don't get the entire question right, you get points, but those points will determine whether or not you fail or pass. Okay, so you see how ridiculous this is getting, right? Because now at this point, it's a snowball's chance in hell the class is going to pass this. Why would you do this? The world will never know. Fast forward, pretty much the entire class answers except for me, another girl, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. Maybe. He lets us know that we have an extra credit assignment right after the test, the quote unquote test, which lets me know that we're probably going to have to take an actual test. And I'll just take that instead of getting up in front of class and embarrassing myself. Not only that, but majority of the stuff nobody knew, right? I didn't even clarify that. The questions that they pulled out of the bag, like 2 people got an A on, maybe 4. But out of like the 30 people in the classroom, it was like 2 to 4 got like a 90, 95 on. Everybody else flunked, right? They either had a 70 or much, much lower. So his reaction was to so his reaction was the extra credit is supposed to quote unquote save you. We get to me and the last few people who haven't put their hands in the bag. Everybody's ignoring the last few people who haven't, and they're jumping on me. Hey man, you should go up there. You should do it. Hey man, you should do it. You should do it. The whole class is yelling at me in unison. I am not about to get up and go put my hand in that bag when I've got 20 something other people breathing down my neck demanding I do something. A, that's crazy peer pressure that shouldn't be allowed during an exam. B, this isn't even a proper exam and half of you have failed. Why are you worried about whether or not I do it? You should be worried about what this extra credit assignment is going to look like, right? So I said I just do the extra credit. I'm not the only one who didn't do it, but for some reason everybody focused on me. Whatever, cool. Not only that, but he had ran out of questions to ask. He kept reusing some of the questions for some students, but at one point they all got answered, all right? So at this point, like if he asks me something that somebody's already answered, I'm just stealing their answer, which obviously isn't fair at all, and he might not even accept, which is like just a double embarrassment on me. So it's like, why, right? So I was like, I'll just do the extra assignment. So we get on the extra credit assignment. I'm thinking it's going to be the actual test. Tell me why the extra credit assignment is a game. You pair up in twos around class and you play that game where somebody has like a stack of cards and they have to like describe to you um, what the main word is, and you have to guess what the main word, the main topic is, and if you guess it correctly, then you get a point. That's extra credit. That's what he has us doing. Okay, here's the issue with that. We're supposed to get in groups of two. Everybody has a partner but me. The entire class evenly has a group of two but me. So it's like I don't have a partner to work with. And people were saying, oh, well, you can just have this person be your partner, this person be your partner. And it's like they've already been with somebody. The whole point of all this is you're getting extra points. So if they redo it again, what if they get extra points? Okay, well, now they've got 50 extra points on their test and you got 25. You're going to be upset, right? So that doesn't work. It's not fair. This isn't professional. This isn't actual work. Why are we doing this? So it's like, okay, I missed the first assignment. I'm not the only one, but I missed the first assignment. And the second one is extra credit. Not only that, but the cards weren't even like, I don't want to say they're not general knowledge, but they're around a certain theme. A theme that I'm not going to say I know nothing about, but a lot of it I didn't know. And I wasn't the only one. A lot of people just kept putting the cards down because they didn't know how to explain it. They didn't know what it was, or they didn't know what it covered. And it's like, how is this extra points to our test? And how is the first thing even a test, right? So at one point, I'm trying to get people to like calm down and shut up because they're trying to force me to do stuff, right? Which is bizarre. And I'm telling them, hey, I don't care about this. I want a test. Like I'm going to talk to him about a test. They interpreted that as, oh, he doesn't care, which is like they've done that several times and have basically spoken for me. And my professor doesn't care. He just takes what they say at face value. So he's like, oh, well, since Andre doesn't care and you guys don't want to, like, nobody else has anything to say, nobody else wants to come up, I guess that's it. And he was like, y'all's grades will reflect it. And it's like, what grades? They played a game, and for the first half of the test, we didn't even really do anything. What are you talking about? And then after that, everybody pretty much just left or hung out in class and talked about how other people were cursing or yelling or talking over each other, basically acting like animals, right? And I was just like, yo, I've got like a 70 something in this class. If I get a straight up 0 for today for the final exam, I'm going to the dean. Like, you're getting reported. I'm passing. I'm not going to fail because you didn't want to give an actual test. Like, that's not what's going to happen. So I emailed them, letting them know, hey, they were talking for me. A, B, you ran out of questions for the first half, and C, for the second half, I didn't have a partner, and teaming up with somebody who would have already had whatever would have caused even more problems. Can I get like a paper to do, or a project to do, or a written test, or something to fill out, like something that I've actually been studying for? Can I get to work on? And that, like, I sent him that in the email. He gave me his phone number a little while ago because like way back at the start of the semester, because I had COVID, and he told me to text him, to reach out to talk to him about like retaking the test, which he like rarely ever actually messaged back for, and at one point just stopped responding to my messages at all. W teacher, right? So I texted him as well, pretty much the same thing, and reworded it a little bit to be like, hey, can we get this resolved soon? Graduation's on this day. If we can't, like I'll go to a higher office, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to talk it over with the teacher, which I could rarely ever find a time to have a one-on-one, because his whole little theater club would hover around him and talk to him. And whenever I did try to talk to him, not today, but just in general, over something that was wrong with work or class or whatever, he constantly had an attitude. So it's like, there's no working with this teacher. I have to go to the dean. So I'm just waiting to see how my average is gonna reflect. But I'm thinking I'll probably end up going to like a higher office tomorrow and seeing if I can't get it settled, or talking to him first to be absolutely sure. Because I've had another teacher tell us, hey, if you got an issue with a professor, talk with them first. They don't talk it out, talk to the higher office, and if they feel like it needs to get further, talk to the dean. But maybe I can fail the class and still pass as far as graduating. I don't know. But yeah, that's it. 40 minutes worth of complaining. Hate this university. Terrible place. Would not recommend it. But unfortunately, I have to go there again because I've already got 2 semesters done, and I need 2 more semesters in order to get my second major and be done with school for the next 10 to 15 years. That's it. Peace. Eat my balls.